Hi, my name is Jamie, and this is my video out. So I grew up in Beaumont, Texas, smallish conservative town, to two wonderful parents. I pretty much knew I was gay from the time I was 5 years old. So I didn't really have that much of a problem accepting it in myself. In fact, I was excited about it, and I couldn't wait to act out on it, to be a gay guy. I don't think I was thinking in terms of being an out gay guy at that time, but just being romantically involved with men. I was a sissy boy. I liked playing with the girls more than the boys. I liked the company of adults and my mother and her friends, and more than I liked other children. I was that kind of stereotypical, precocious gay boy. But when I would play with friends, I would often play the female role. Like if we were playing, Popeye, the Sailor Man, I would be Olive Oyl, and I would imagine myself as Farrah Fawcett Majors from Charlie's Angels, which was a hit when I was a kid. And I remember wishing that I should have been a little girl. And I'm happy now being a man, a cisgender man. But I did think that girls had more fun. They certainly had more fashion options. But I do remember the moment that I was, or the first moment I remember thinking that I'm gay is, when pre-adolescent was coming on, and I would fantasize, and I have sexual fantasies, and it was always men. I remember sitting in the bathtub, and kind of crying silently into the royal blue washcloth. In fact, the label was even royal. And realizing that I was gay and being more concerned because I was so tied to my mother and her opinions and thoughts and, and the way she saw the world. And I was more upset about, and I remember crying about how she would feel about me being gay. Not necessarily, and I did have the wish, why can't I be straight or whatever, but it was more, my tears were more about her reaction than they were about for myself. I came out to my parents when I was a freshman in college, and this was in 1986, so the AIDS crisis was, raging and in full bloom. And again, I didn't have any shame about being gay, but I was really worried about how it would affect my parents. And they loved and adored me, and I knew that. But I knew that they had their own hang-ups about it. And I didn't plan my coming out to them. I was in a playwriting class. And my parents were very excited about that because they wanted me to be a writer. And so they said, oh, well, we want to see something. We want to see some of your work. And the first assignment was this, writing a 5-minute scene. And I sent it to them. I printed it out in my dot matrix printer. It was the 80s. And it was a scene about a maybe gay guy and his best girlfriend, and they move into an apartment together. They're in their early 20s, and they may or may not be in love. They're not sure, and he may or may not be gay. He's not sure. It was very Will and Grace, about 15 years ahead of its time. So I sent the scene to my parents, and then I called them, and my mother, Mama Jean, was on the phone. And she said, oh, we love it. It's just wonderful. My God, I'm telling you, you can write. I'm telling you, that's your ticket. And she always spoke her mind. Like, she never had a thought she didn't speak. And then she was uncharacteristically hesitant. And then she said, but you don't have tendencies like that, do you? And I thought, well, you asked the question. And I said, yeah, I think I do. Now, at this point, I knew I did. I had already been having sex with men, so I was full-blown homosexual. And I was out to my friends at that point. And I heard her put the phone receiver down and say, oh, pick up the phone! Jamie has something he needs to tell us! Earl's my father. So I went home after that. The first time I went home after that was for Thanksgiving holiday, and my mother, Mama Jean, cried buckets, and then she walked into the room and with 2 different earrings and said, which one goes better with this outfit? That's a little joke. I mean, she did do that. She did that anyway when I was growing up. She was always asking my opinion about earrings and accessories. But she cried buckets and thought, I should have seen it coming, and the whole thing that a lot of the stereotypes you've heard, it's going to be a hard life, and you're going to be lonely and all this. And my father, Earl, he was more stoic and reserved about it, although he had a big personality too. So he took me out to our first father-gay-son lunch. And he looked at me and he said, now, your mother and I love you no matter what you are. I think I saw it in you before your mother did. And then he took a sip of his Chardonnay, and he looked across the restaurant, not at me, and he said, just be careful, and don't march in any of those parades. So it was, it was like, we love you no matter what, but don't be too out there about it. And I did march in those parades, and I was pretty, and I've been pretty out there about it ever since. I started seeing this guy. He taught ballet at Miss Dolly's school of ballet dance, and for a couple of times I lied and said I was going out with a friend, and then I thought, well, that's ridiculous. She knows I'm gay. I'm 19. I'm an adult. Huh. So I come in late after one of those ballet bar nights, and Mama Jean is waiting for me. And she just lights into me and says, where the hell have you been? And I said, out with a friend I know, and I can see you're drunk again, and how dare you keep me up at night when I've got work in the morning and work that pays for that college you go to and that car you drive, and what friend were you out with? And I said, Carlos Fitzpatrick de Navarro. That was a dancer's name. And she said, who in the hell is Carlos Fitzpatrick? And I said, he teaches ballet at Miss Dolly. She knew Miss Dolly, so I thought I would throw her that nugget to give him a tutu of respectability. Didn't work, and then I thought I would impress her. And I said, well, he used to dance with the New York City Ballet. New York? Have you heard of AIDS? I said, have you heard of safe sex? There are only 2 kinds of sex, oral and anal. She forgot vaginal, but that was her problem. And then she disappeared. And leaving me standing there speechless. And then she came back and then she pointed a finger at me and she said, you don't know what love is. And then disappeared. And I used to tell that story. I've been telling that story ever since it happened pretty much. To my friends, always can you believe how outrageous my mother is and the things she says and all that. And in my youth, I was never really thinking about why she was so upset. And of course, anger is an emotion that masks fear. And of course, she was just terrified because AIDS was this raging forest fire, across the world and it was a death sentence, and there was no, people still didn't know the cause for sure. Well, they did by then, but still it was questionable. I mean, people were still questioning, and there was no cure for it. She was just terrified that I was gonna get AIDS. So fast forward many years, I moved to New York, I had a boyfriend, I had lots of men along the way, all this, out and proud, and I found out I was HIV positive in 2002. And I was in the closet about it for about 10 years. Now at that point, I was lucky when I was diagnosed because by then there were already good drugs. There was the drug cocktail, and it's never been an issue for me health-wise. I've never had any side effects from the pills or anything like that. But unlike being gay, which I always accepted and really didn't have any shame about. I mean, maybe I had an iota of shame about it in my early adolescence, but for the most part was always self-accepting and happy about it. But with the HIV, I had my own shame, which I didn't really fully acknowledge for a while, and I stayed in the closet about it because I didn't want my parents to know, because I didn't want them to worry. That's true, but there was also the shame about how you got it, because, I should have known better. Bad me. I came out when AIDS was a reality and safe sex was protocol. So I should have known better. I shouldn't have gotten it. I should all that kind of stuff. And my mother asked me a few times, you would tell me, wouldn't you? And if you had HIV or AIDS, and I said, oh yeah, and I lied because at that point I knew, and I just didn't want to deal with it with her, and I never told her, and she died never knowing, or maybe she really did know in a way. And kind of like the way I came out to my parents on the phone, kind of when I had to, I came out to my father as HIV positive on the phone when I had to. I was in a fight with my older brother, and it got really nasty, and he threatened to tell my father that I was HIV positive. And he told me this in a voicemail, and I thought, you know what? And at this point, I had been thinking about telling my father anyway, because I was writing a memoir, and I was on the fence about whether or not I was going to include that in the memoir, so therefore I was going to be coming out in a big way. And I thought, you know what? No one's going to tell my father but me. And I picked up the phone and I called him, and he started off with some small talk. He was like, oh, I see on Regis and Kelly, y'all are having some bad weather up there. He was always giving me the weather report in New York from Beaumont, Texas, because he watched Regis and Kelly, it was Regis and Kelly at the time. And I cut off his small talk, and I said, listen, I need to tell you something. I'm HIV positive. I have been a while. I've been for 10 years. I never told you and Mom because I didn't want y'all to worry, and you don't have to worry. I take 1 pill a day. I've never been sick. I don't have any side effects. And these days it's a manageable condition like diabetes. Hell, it's better than diabetes. I mean, diabetes is a pain in the ass. And then there was dead silence on the other end of the line. And then he said, but you're okay, right? You're going to be okay. I said, yeah. I said, I'll die someday, but it probably won't be from this. He said, yeah, that's what I've been hearing. They've got some good drugs for it these days. It's not the big deal that it used to be. And I said, no, it's not. And then he started telling me which celebrities were on Regis and Kelly that morning. Pretty much done. I would tell them to, first of all, not to deny that moment of crying into that royal blue washcloth. Cry all those tears. Sit with the moment of being uncomfortable for whatever reason you're uncomfortable or sad or in other words, don't deny your feelings. And then dry your tears off and realize that just like you are made a certain way, your hair may be blonde, it may be red, you may enjoy, your favorite color may be orange, you are good at drawing, but terrible at sports, and you know how to work with tools. Those are all your assets, and you've accepted all of those things about yourself probably at that point. So this is one more aspect of yourself. that defines you, just like all those other pieces define you eventually as a whole, and be happy with that, and think about all the other people who are out there, who are gay, who lead amazing lives, happy lives, complicated lives like everybody else, and know that you're not alone, and you're going to find your tribe, you're going to find your friends, you're going to find your lovers. And smile. One of the biggest problems I think faces the LGBTQI plus community today is assimilation. It's amazing that we have all the hard-won civil rights that we have today. We can, for the most part, get married. We can serve in the military. We can have children however we want to have children, adopt children. But in this rush to have all the rights that that mainstream America has, I think sometimes we risk trying to be like everybody else, and we forget that we should celebrate what makes us different, whatever that is, and not rush to be just like every other house on the block. With regard to HIV and AIDS, a lot of, and I know that this has been, people have certainly been talking about this in the last 10 or so years, is older generations, myself and older included, are kind of astounded sometimes by the lack of knowledge from younger gays about how devastating the AIDS crisis was, and what a Holocaust it was, and how serious it was, and that some are more kind of cavalier about HIV/AIDS today, and again, I think that is something that we can't lose sight of, and that it still is a health issue, and that needs to be taken seriously. What's my favorite part about being me? I love that I'm a flamboyant clotheshorse, and that I can make people laugh. That to me is the greatest joy, and that it took me a while, but I am now. I found my artist voice through writing and performing, something that talents that I didn't nurture for a long time, and I'm now nurturing later in life in a very big way, and that makes me ecstatic. Make sure you don't lose sight of what makes you unique and amazing and different from everybody else.